Welcome back to another episode of the Be the CEO of Your Life and Business podcast. Every year at this time, we talk about this topic because it's a big topic for us,
Yes.
right? The transition back into September after the summer of being a little bit more flexible and the kids being home and not having such a rigid schedule as we do during the school year. So we wanted to come on this week and talk about our tips for basically getting back into the swing of things, right?
Mm-hmm.
The last 2 weeks of August are typically the most stressful. I know, at least for Amy and I, because at least for me, like it's in between. I mean, the boys have been home all summer, but for like Kaylee is in between camp and school. So she's home and we're trying to, juggle just keeping them busy so that we can work at the same time. So it's a tough, time of year to get through, but we're almost through it. My kids go back on September 5th. And so now I'm really starting to think about what the fall is going to look like for us because we're going to be slammed with sports yet again. And just getting back to school. And like we have a lot of big things this year. Matthew's graduating middle school. He's receiving confirmation. Kaylee's graduating elementary school. So Chris is starting middle school. So it's just been a little bit stressful to even think about. So I guess the question is, how do you transition back into this time of year and how do you deal with the overwhelm?
Yes. All right. So I'm going to spin this perspective on its head for a second. I'm actually really looking forward to September because this was my first summer trying to navigate having Olivia home and not in like a daycare setting. Joseph's been fine every day. He's off at school. He loves it. And he's an early bird. He gets out the door. And with Olivia, it's like pulling teeth to get her out of bed. It's awful. And so I'm looking forward to getting back to routine for her and routine for us. And this summer has been really eye-opening because the summer I always felt like when I was growing up or going through school, the summer was just like fun, but I didn't realize the extra stress and pressure that put on my parents to try and make it all work and make sure that we were all, staying active or at all of our activities or gone vacations and stuff. So as I get older and as my kids get older, I realize that every single year it's going to be a little different. This year was definitely different from every other year prior. And it taught me a lot of lessons about how to maybe, adjust going forward and moving ahead for next summer. Especially with this weird time warp at the end of August, like where there's no camps, there's nothing happening. Like it makes it a little more difficult.
It does make it difficult, although I have really been trying to enjoy like the positive parts about it. I don't have to rush anybody out of the house in the morning. Like this morning, I just got up, got my morning routine in. When I left, Kaylee was on the couch with Jackson watching TV. And I just got up, did my thing and left because they're home. So I'm not, for most of the summer, I was getting Kaylee out of the house, getting her to camp. She had to be there by 8:30. And then I had to leave the office at 4 to pick her up. So right now in the next 2 weeks, I don't have those time restraints. So that part of it is I'm enjoying and also getting to sleep an extra 45 minutes in the morning, which is a big deal to me.
Life-changing.
So during the school year, I wake up at 5. And during the summer, when Kaylee was in camp, I would get up at 5:30, but now until they go back to school, I'll get up at 5:45. So really late for me. So I'm just trying to enjoy those parts of the last 2 weeks. But at the same time, really thinking about what's coming in September. So we have to get the kids ready for school. I got to figure out what their schedules are going to be. And literally the first week, Matthew starts football after school. So, and Chris and Kaylee are both playing fall sports. The boys are still doing travel baseball in the fall. So I'm almost like, we're the queens of routine, right? Like I love getting back to the routine, but I'm also trying to mentally prepare myself for what's coming.
Because I feel the same way. There are a lot of moving parts happening when the school year starts. Like I think that looking at it and it's funny, like our bookkeeper will come in and she'll be like, it's the most wonderful time of the year. Like she'll start singing the song from the Christmas song. She's like, ladies, the kids are going back. Like they're in school. But at the same time, looking at it just as generally as that is a trap because what comes with school schedules, at least for us with school age kids, we have to account for the school's calendar. We have to account for those random days that there might be a half day or a day off. We have to also account for all of the activities that are happening too after school, which is crazy. I started putting in a calendar, and this is going to be one of the strategies that I talk about calendaring everything. I started putting in our home calendar all of the nights that Olivia has soccer and cheerleading practice.
Why don't you talk about that now? That's like
Okay,
a perfect
so-
segue because I love this.
So we got their schedules. Olivia's on 2 soccer teams. She's on rec and travel. And she's also doing cheerleading, and she is also going to be in CCD classes, like
Right.
faith formation.
Oh, forgot about that.
Yes.
Yep.
So for me, my husband's job, it does not provide flexibility for him to work from home. It just never has, never will. And so a lot of the juggling act for the schedule has to rest on me
Yeah.
or other people that can help us out. And so for like faith formation, for example, it starts right after school because the assumption is that you pick your kids up from school and you can drop them off. Now, the benefit though, this is where in examining all of this, you dispel the overwhelm when you really start asking good questions of yourself, right? So at first I was like, oh my gosh, Laura, what am I going to do? It's either on this day or this day during the week. It's at 3:30. That means I have to leave the office at 3.
Who schedules CCD at 3:30?
You know-
I'm sorry.
My church. I remember not doing it this. I went to like Sunday school. So it was, everybody was home. There was not this like weird random time. Anyway, I'd have to leave the office, not even just at 3, but I'd probably pick Olivia up from school as opposed to putting her in an aftercare program that day. Right. So I say this with such specificity because I want you to understand, like, this is how my brain processes through like this overwhelm. So I have this overwhelm. I freak out to Laura and I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to do. But then I realize, okay, well, I get into the office by X time in the morning. I'm going to be there all day. I know now that I have to end my day at whatever it is, 2:20 or what have you, leave to go pick her up. But then our church is literally down the road from where I live.
Yeah.
And so I can drop her off, go home, have an hour time to just get myself, get some other things done, wrap up some administrative stuff, and then go and pick her up. And Joseph's school is literally right next door. So it's going to be fine to pick up the kids and bring them home. And then we have nothing else going on normally that night. But what's crazy to me is that if I didn't sit and think about just the benefit or the like other side of the coin for a second, I would be like, oh my gosh, my entire day is wasted. And then that kind of thinking doesn't help anything.
It serves no one.
Serves
It doesn't
no one.
serve you at all.
Mm-mm.
It's natural and we all do it,
Yeah.
because even like over the summer, what did I do? It was like the same concept. I mean, I could stay a little bit later, but I had to pick Kaylee up at 4:00. I had to leave the office around 3:55 or whatever, 4:00, and then pick her up and go home. And I would get back on the computer and finish up emails and do whatever I had to do. And in the beginning, my thought process was, oh my God, this is so annoying. I have to leave the office early. I can't do this. And then in an instant, I was like, what? How is that helping me?
Yeah.
It's not.
Yep.
So there's nothing I can do about it.
Mhm.
There were days where we had meetings and stuff where Mike was able to pick her up. So he helped out a little bit. But for the most part, it was me.
Mhm.
And it is what it is.
Yeah.
So you have to figure out, like, change how you're framing it in your mind.
Yeah.
Because look, you get to spend a little time with her
Yep.
in the afternoon.
Yep.
You'll pick her up from school, you'll drop her off at religion, and then you'll go back home and do work
Yep.
offshore.
Yep.
So you're not ending your day at 2:20 or whenever you have to leave. You're just
Right.
taking a break.
Yes.
And then you're going back home and you'll finish whatever you can finish.
Yes.
And whatever's not finished will be there for you the next morning.
Exactly. And so the first strategy, I think, is really to just be mindful of your perspective. Like, be mindful of how you're examining it. What lens are you putting on your brain to think about these things? Because you can say how overwhelming they are and how stressful it is. And oh my gosh, it rests on me, blah, blah, blah. But then it's not going to help you. It's not going to serve you. It's not going to lead to a positive result. So don't think that way.
Yeah.
Really?
It really doesn't help. And I have to be honest, I don't want to make this sound like it's so easy because it's not. And
No,
you know,
it's
I
not.
am not, like, I complain all the time
Oh yeah.
about the schedules and how busy we are and all the things that we have on our plate and
Mhm.
how sometimes I just feel like I'm drowning and I don't have enough time at work. But I feel like we've really been working on what our perspective is around this topic.
Yeah.
So I'm definitely better, and probably because I work for myself, like it's not the stress that it was when I
Mhm.
was somewhere else.
That's the thing I wanted to actually just say, because this is a top-down problem for our office. So because we wrangle with this problem, we know that everybody else in our office is wrangling with it too.
Mhm.
And not to be very stereotypical, but we have an office full of women. So this does happen where a lot of this mental burden gets shifted onto the moms or wives, and trying to figure out all of these schedules and making them work. We get it. Like, we're going through it. I think that if we were in a different environment, this issue would be more or less treated very black and white, like, figure it out and just go do it. And it wouldn't be, an actual conversation or like a real collaboration with an employer to be like, how do I make this work? Like, I
Yeah.
want to be here, I want to be working, I want to be, but in my family unit, this is just not realistic. I have to be able to go on these days. Is there another option? Can I make this up a different way? Like, there are ways to explore that. And I think too, post COVID, I think there's got to be more flexibility. I hate to say it as
Yeah.
like a sweeping generalization, because I know that there's some, like my husband's job, there is no flexibility like that, but there's got to be a way that, you can get a little bit more help or collaboration from the person you work with.
Yeah, there has to be a better back and forth, I
Yeah.
think. Look at Alejandra came to us and she said, look,
Yeah.
next week, the kids are both home. I don't know what to do with them. So I think I'm gonna have to take the week off. And we're like, okay,
Yeah.
because we get it. Like,
Yeah.
we are there also. I am not taking vacation this summer, but I have been doing the juggling act of trying to figure out, like, what are we doing with them today? Matthew calls me in the middle of the day. I want to go to the gym. I want to do that. And it's just like a constant
Yeah.
juggling act that we're living ourselves.
Right.
So we are a little bit more understanding about, the pressures and the obligations of having a career and a
Yeah.
family at home. But if you're, an employee, try to open up the lines of communication as much as you can about what your, you don't have to go into a tremendous amount of detail, but what your obligations are at home, and that it's not that you don't want to do your job, but you're trying to be the best everywhere.
Yeah.
So you need a little bit of flexibility on both ends
Yeah.
in order to do that.
I agree. And then I think after you are evaluating your perspective, and after you try to explore other options and see if there's any other wiggle room that you could, kind of work with, the other thing is really to calendar everything. You have to put it down somewhere.
I even put it in and I'm going to do the same thing again. And I said last year,
Can't
I'm like,
wait.
guys, I'm really sorry that I'm cluttering our calendar, but just so you can see, like, where I am, like, if you need something from me later in the day or whatever, you can just look and see where I am.
Yes.
But I put it in our office calendar, and every evening will be my color.
Yeah.
Because
Yes.
the kids have 15 sports, like, it's just a religion also, which I forgot about.
Mhm.
And it's just a lot of things. And if I did not calendar them, I'd be like a chicken without a head.
Well, because I've been doing this a lot too over the past couple of weeks. I don't know why. I just have had a lot of phone calls lately, and I've been putting them in the calendar for just that gentle reminder to me that this is when it is. And I've been putting it in a way that it'll remind me a little bit better, just to get it out on paper and just to see it, visually see it, because then it sets up and says, okay, then I can work around this. I know that it's going to be a 10-minute call, a half-hour call, an hour call. I can work around it. And it's the same thing with scheduling your activities and the kids' activities. Like, it gets to be a busier time of year. And the thing that I like about September, one, because I feel like it's a like a brand new start, right? Like
Mhm.
I don't know. It's that
Yep.
school year,
It's like a new year.
thing. Yep, it is. It's like a new year. It is also going to set you up for success in tackling the balance of the year because it only gets busier from September and October onward, right? With November and December and how hectic it is. So if you can really put something in place that you can start to implement and start to make those habits and those routines just more routine for you, more consistent for your entire family, it's going to start setting you up for success.
Yep.
I think.
And it helps to, at least for me, it helps for me to see it,
Mhm.
to see my schedule blocks, to see the different colors in the calendar, to see. So we have our Outlook calendar, but I always talk about how I have my planner.
Yeah.
And so I will write in there what my weeks look like, what my days look like, and I highlight my focus blocks. And it helps me to visualize, my time.
Right.
So you can see, when am I actually free?
Yeah. And even to the extent that you do it on the weekends too. I mean, filling in. I know that between Olivia's soccer schedule and her cheer schedule, we're literally going to be out of the house every Saturday and Sunday for the fall.
Mhm.
At minimum, all the way up until Thanksgiving. So I know that that's the reality, right? I can put it down and then we just work around it. I think that the biggest mistake that people make is that you start to like jump into a new schedule and then you start to have those panic moments where like we're 2 weeks out from the beginning of school. We're 2 weeks
Yeah.
out from all those real, those activities kicking in. Start doing it now and start having those conversations before you hit the panic button. And then those conversations never go well when you are panicked and overwhelmed and stressed.
And that panic comes quick.
Oh yeah.
Like if you all of a sudden, I kind of felt it this week. I was like, oh my God, I have a week left, a week. And then we're jumping back into that hectic schedule.
Yeah.
And while we love the fall around here. It's our favorite season. This time of year is my and Amy's very favorite time of year. We love it. So it's like exciting that we're heading into the fall. But I had a moment of, I need to really sit down and look at what our schedule is going to be like, because it's going to be here in like a minute.
Yes.
And I'm going to feel overwhelmed. So
Yeah.
it really, really helps to just look at the schedule, calendar everything. Even if you just do it, like look a week ahead.
Yeah.
For somebody that's not, I can just see for somebody who's not used to who doesn't have these habits, it might seem incredibly overwhelming to think about the entire month of September.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So think about the first week of school. Look at the first week, think about what your activities are going to be. What is your work schedule? What are your kids' schedules? Your spouse, if you're married, what is your spouse's schedule? Like for me, Mike, because he coaches all of the teams,
all of the
teams, every sport, it's really ridiculous. But so in the evenings, he's not home.
Right.
So it's on me to figure out, what are we eating for dinner? So like on Sundays, I will think about the week ahead. I have to think about and talk to him about what nights is he, because for a lot of these teams, he's the head coach. So when are they having practice that week? For all the other teams he coaches, when do they have practice? So I can figure out like, what nights is everybody going to be home? When am I going to need to maybe order something if I'm not going to be home? So even down to those details I look at, because when you plan ahead, it takes the pressure out of the moment. Does that make sense? Like when you are faced with like, when Monday and Tuesday roll around and it's 3 PM and you're like, oh my God, what are we doing for dinner today? I can't handle that.
It drives me wild. And honestly, we can't even touch the dinner topic in my household because I'm married to somebody that has to be in the mood for certain things.
God,
and I just like, I can't. I mean, not for nothing else though. Our kids are also not the easiest eaters. They are pretty picky on things, but you kind of have like your food groups narrowed down with them. It's like, I can't do that with another adult.
No.
Like, come on, dude, like give me a break. Okay. What the thing that I think that resonates the most with what you just said, for me at least, is you might think it's overwhelming to put everything on the calendar for like the next 4 months, right? Because there's only 4 months left in the year, but you're also then going to start looking at it on a daily basis. And that is even more overwhelming for a lot of people because you have literally every moment accounted for. But as I think the perspective that I started to use that kind of shifted this was like, always reminds me of like a budget. If you figure out where your time is allocated, then you know what time you have left
Mhm.
that you can actually spend it. Like
Yeah.
you're giving yourself the permission to fill in that blank space or to like leave it blank. Like
Yeah.
forget it. Laura, go get your nails done. Go shopping somewhere. Like find that little 15-minute window and go do it, right? You're giving yourself that permission once you get it on paper. And then you can
Yeah.
say, okay, maybe it's not as bad, because we're
That
in
is
our
so
head
true.
and we're like, oh, it's going to be terrible. Oh my gosh, there's practice. It's like, okay, that's 1 hour of the 18 hours you're awake in a
Yes.
given day.
Yeah.
Is it really that bad?
Yeah.
I don't think so.
Well, maybe.
Maybe,
Depends
but
on the day and how many practices we have. But it's so true. And also just something you just mentioned about it being close to the end of 2023, which is
wild,
insane to me.
so
This year
insane.
is going so fast. But it's also a good time to think about where you're at in your life in general. You know, what have you accomplished this year? What did you set out to do in the beginning of the year that you haven't done yet? So you can fold all of this in
Yeah.
to your analysis of what's coming and what you can plan for. And it's just it's like a new beginning.
Yeah.
You know, it really, like you said,
Totally.
it's like a new year. So it's a really good time to plan for the coming months, figure out where you are in your life, and try to just make things a little bit easier for yourself in planning your days, your weeks, or whatever will work best for you. But it really will help reduce the stress in your life. So we hope these tips were helpful. We thank you for spending time with us, and we'll talk to you on the next episode.